display or on Zoom. It is January 23rd, 7 p.m. For our select board meeting here in the Arcan meeting room. And like always, we will stand and honor America by pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Use the public meeting notice.
If you can read that one.
I can read that one, okay. All right. A public hearing, Paul Stewart of the Community Opportunities Group, Inc., to report on and discuss progress of the town's current FY 2021 Community Development Fund, CDF, grant and receive public comments on the town's proposed application to the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, the funding from its FY 2022-23 CDF program. Paul Stewart is running a few minutes behind. We're going to keep the public meeting open and we're going to move on to our next order of business. Okay. We okay?
Yep.
All right, Dennis.
So the next item was the appointment of Megan Condon to the position of Assistant DPW Director. I know you do have copies of her agenda, her resume, along with a cover letter. A couple of you, Chairman and Vice Chairman, did have the opportunity to meet her. Megan has 16 years experience for the town of Wellesley. She is a civil engineer, has a degree in civil engineering, tremendous background in water, is in a much larger community. This would be an opportunity for her to advance up probably a lot faster than she would in her own community, because she's an assistant superintendent on the water side. As you see from her resume, she has had experience in the construction aspects. And we interviewed her initially, myself, Jesse Riddell and Beth Cornell Smith, and we were very impressed. And Jesse maybe could offer the board a few comments on why he thinks she would be a good fit for the community.
Just want to come on up, please.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we had the pleasure of interviewing Megan on a couple of different occasions. She was very well spoken, a lot of experience in this field. She had a lot of background in water, familiar with the PFAS issues. She's very familiar with the grant writing process. Just her experience alone, the amount of time that she's been with her department, moving up through the ranks. She's had tremendous opportunity with her position over in Wellesley, but right now she's kind of at a standstill as far as, you know, where she was able to get to. So Bellingham looked like an opportunity for her to kind of go to that next level, and we're at a very good point to take her in and you know, have her learn my current role, you know, with myself now, but also with Don on the back end of his career. So be a good opportunity to get her trained up on Bellingham and kind of keep us in that forward movement that we've been experiencing. So
Jesse's comment when we were done with the interview and Megan left was that she would be turnkey. She's had experience with the exact type of facilities we have. She's been pursuing grant funding with PFAS. They have the same issues there, familiar with the TTHM issues that we have. References, we do business with some of the same engineering firms that they do business with. We were able to make some contacts there, and Beth did the reference checks, and I know that her report back to me was that they were outstanding. And so,
Yeah, sure. Please.
yeah, see Jesse.
I thought he just liked standing.
He's waiting for me, yeah. The gentleman.
I did call the references. They were very quick to call back, which is always a plus. It's always a good sign when they're not hesitant to talk. I spoke to some of her coworkers, a couple of the consultants that they've worked with. And I spoke with some of the other officials in town. She was referred to in almost, I would say with every single one, that she is fantastic working with people and with the consultants and the projects, coordinating projects and getting things together and to come together at the same time. I did mention to her the intersection out here. And, to one of her references, and she said that's something that Megan would just jump right into. She would love to do that and work with the contractors, and she's very familiar with that. They even said they've seen her pick up a tool or two. So that's, a wonderful thing. She was referred to as a go-to person. And if there's any issues with constructions in the street, whatever she says, they take her word and they know that that's what it is. She's not afraid of new technology, and she looks for the best way to improve the departments. She is one who does not like hearing that's the way we've done it. So I was very impressed with the references, and I think from what they've said, they're very pleased with the relationship that they've had. Some of them have worked with her 17 years, 15 years. So for the length of time she's been there, and they were all very good reviews.
Yeah, excellent. I know the one thing, Kelly and I met with her, and I was just very impressed with how at ease she was with us. My approach in asking her questions was more about on a personal nature, just wanted to get her to personal, whatever interest is, like things along those lines. The pros will vet out all the technical requirements. I just want to get to know her, and I just felt as though she's the type of person that would fit really well in with this community. I really liked her a lot. The other piece that I know is important, Dawn is very strong on the water side, as is Jesse, but Jesse will be taking on new responsibilities with her strength in water and with the concerns that citizens have around water. She'll be really good at educating our community about if there are concerns or dispelling concerns when we really don't have any. She's very, very strong in water, and I think that's an important element to bring her on board. So that I'd say absolutely by far. She's just great, really good. Well, good hire.
So I have appointed her, and it would require ratification by the board.
Did Kelly want to add anything?
One thing.
Did you want to add anything?
No, just, the one question that, I had a couple questions with her back and forth, but, one of the things I asked her was, what is she looking forward to learning being here? And, water was the first answer. She couldn't wait to get in and figure out how we're doing things. Like everyone said, she's extremely personable, down to earth, and didn't have to think about answering any questions. It was just very fluid. And I think she will be a really good counterpart with Jessie. I do see that she has the type of personality that she will be a good leader with the group that is currently there at the DPW. So I have no problem ratifying that.
It's encouraging to hear things like turnkey, and that she's got, it's almost like when I was reading her resume today, I'm like, holy cow, she's like got the experience in all the areas that we need someone. How did she find out about the job? It's just sort of.
It's well publicized.
Yeah, okay,
Within the professional circles that
nice.
she lives in.
Sounds like a great fit.
Very much. I like the fact that she's been in one community for 16 years.
Right.
Worked her way up. If you look at her resume, she's been in 3 or 4 positions within the Wellesley DPW, always moving upward.
I'm looking to jump to another town, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's in Southborough, so she's not too far.
Right, yeah.
Dennis?
Okay, so it would require a motion and a second to appoint.
I make a motion to ratify the appointment of Megan Condon as our new assistant DPW director. Effective, do we have a?
We're shooting for 30 days is what we have suggested.
Okay.
But I suggested that she not obviously inform her employer until the board took action. So it'd be 30 days from now.
So effective 30 days from today.
Second.
Do a first and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Any questions from the folks joining the meeting? Hearing none, see none, we call for a vote. All in favor?
I,
All opposed? Motion
Thank you.
carries.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And honestly, when she.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
When she gets started, we'll have her come in and yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Right, right, working through this, Dennis, let's go right to it. I think it falls on here. So the MBTA overlay district community discussion, Dennis.
Well, as you know, we've done our housing production plan, we've done our, what was required, in Westwood here, for us, our town council a couple of times, along with Jim Cupper, to get the MBTA, overlay district, plan in place. It does call for us to form a committee, which is required to report, on the designation of MBTA overlay districts, minimum of 5 acres, maximum of 50 acres, but we need to have a total number of not less than 50 acres designated for this zoning. So what we'd like to do is put a committee together, start meeting, going over the requirements and find out. I know I've been contacted by several property owners, so there are, needless to say, there are opportunities out there. And property owners that would like to have their property considered for this overlay district. So we were talking, certainly open for discussion, but we're talking a 5-member committee. I think we want to have select board members, zoning board members, planning board member, possibly a conservation commission member. But I open it up for discussion as to what the board believes I'd like to see as far as the committee goes.
and the committee will be aware that anyone who's looking to have their land considered for this, that we're not looking to do anything until November of 2024, when our application states. We're not,
That would be. the
Moving
plan to
quicker.
present. Yeah, that's what our plan calls for, is that we do our due diligence.
Yeah.
And there may be changes in the law too, as we have said, but
that's,
we
yeah,
are required to have something in place by the 31st of 2024, 31st of December, 2024. Obviously, we have our town meeting in November.
Yeah.
So that's why we picked November. And present. It'll give us an opportunity to consider all opportunities out there, as well as the impacts, because there are going to be impacts. There's going to be water, sewer, traffic. There's a lot of things to
Yeah.
take into account with the different properties, and where it can be as small as 5 acres. I think we're going to get a lot of mid-size parcels where we want to get we need to get a minimum of 50 acres identified.
And depending upon where, this ends up being, we could have a number of residents showing up here saying, how can you add 700 units? Look at the traffic, look what, we have with Amazon and on and on and on. And it will require 2/3 vote to pass.
Yep.
And we know how hard getting that is with what we just experienced at the last town meeting. And I prefer, just my thought, with Kelly's saying, I don't want to rush into this. I don't want to be forced into making a decision at the next town meeting or the town meeting thereafter. We need to take our time. I know this is a different situation than Bonvie, but I felt as though that got rushed through the process. There was a lot of momentum. It seemed really good. And now look where we are 3+ years later. And like Dennis said, we don't know if the laws are going to be changed or not. We don't know what's going to change within the State House. So I think it's important that this process take as long as it can possibly take, and not jump because landowners are putting pressure on us to make a decision so that their property could be worth more money if they were to sell it. That's not what we're here for. We're here to do what's in the best interest of the entire community, not just some landowners that want to sell their property and make a big buck.
right, and this is the state coming forward saying that we have to make this plan. This isn't something that we necessarily want to do at this point in time with everything else that we have going on in town, but
It's incredible when you think about it. The density that it calls for is 15
It's crazy.
units per acre.
It's crazy.
The apartment complexes that we have The apartment complexes that we have in town don't have that type of density, I don't think, do they?
Yeah, the Charles
I
doesn't.
don't think they do 15 units per acre. I don't even think the apartment I will put you on the spot. But, yes, I do.
But even the new apartment Curtis, that's not 15, or is it more? No, it's not.
That's, let's see, two
I
seventy-four.
guess how you measure that is.
It's 10 acres.
How many, that's 10 acres, so
Just-
10 times.
so it is.
100. Yeah, so that's the kind of density.
That type of density, but 3 or 4 times that size.
It would be 5 of those.
Yeah, 5 of those buildings.
In 1 acre.
Yeah, it's.
No,
it's
in
I'll
50.
check. You can, yeah, I'll call. Yeah.
So you bring the town environment on the fly to the city environment, just like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, that's what it is, how many nights?
And I can tell you, a lot of communities are concerned about it.
Yeah.
Much the same as we are. It's any community that's either hosts an MBTA station or is contiguous to one, borders one. Obviously, we border one, as does Medway, they're going through it, and all the towns.
Which is one of the reasons why we want to do as much due diligence and take as long as we absolutely can, because the ultimate hope is that there are some communities that are fighting this, and there's already been changes to the application and the parameters of it, and so we hope these continue to change in our favor, because the way they were originally presented, we all just kind of went, no way. So that is the hope.
And there have been changes, because initially it was all in one section, now they're at least allowing us to break it up, so who knows what other changes are gonna evolve. Are there any other questions from the board or comments, because there is a citizen that would like to ask a question? No?
I apologize
No, that's fine, it's okay. It's
for
public.
being unprepared. I don't even know what you're talking, what are you talking about? The state doing what?
So that, the
We can explain it to you, yeah.
The MBTA overlay district is something that the state is now requiring us, because we are a town.
Yeah.
That, as Dennis is saying, is contiguous
Yeah.
to a commuter station. We now have to have 50 acres worth of housing. New,
Yeah. And they
support-
determine how many units per acre.
And
yes.
it's on the law.
Originally, when it first came to us, it had to be 50 acres altogether to build this giant thing. Now it's
Within 1 mile.
Within 1 mile.
with 1 mile.
Put that in, that came from.
That came from the state.
I
It
know.
came from someone who doesn't understand what, like.
They want to-
Yes.
Without getting, what they want to do is they want to get more folks commuting into the city, using the commuter rail. And because it's so expensive to live inside the city, that's what they're doing. And they're forcing this law upon us, and it's ever evolving. And because it's out there, there are landowners
Oh, yeah.
that have this, and they're going, wow, this could be worth some serious money.
Right.
They want us to make a decision quickly, so then they can sell their land and you can have folks building upon it. And we're being told by the state, if we don't act upon this, we may lose state funding for other types of projects. That's not a given, but that's what we're being told. So we're being cautious when we decide to go into, we're not gonna rush into it.
How did they come up with that number of 50 acres?
I don't know.
Is it
Some
arbitrary or
analysts-
formula by
No, it's not arbitrary.
population or?
Analysts, it's all based on growth and numbers that they see. They've got someone studying models and different things in the state.
They're also looking at the housing crisis that is going on all over the state. I mean, everywhere, the whole country's in a housing crisis.
So where are we gonna put all those people coming into?
Yeah, right.
Border
So
crisis.
that
I'm not going
that
to-
is why we want to take as much time as we
Yeah.
are able. And weren't we one of the first municipalities to actually submit our application to the
Yeah.
state? So
We were.
we're doing what we're supposed to do.
I'll do some back end research.
No problem. Any other questions? So along with what Dennis said, I think a five-person committee is perfect. And I do agree. One from the planning board, one from zoning, one from the select board, one from Concom. Now we're gonna ask them, and then we should have a citizen at large. So that's a total of 5. And I'm gonna ask the board, is there anyone on the board here that would like to be on that committee? Raise your hand. We can, or if there's more than one, we can discuss, those particulars. No one's raising their hand. How about you,
Well,
sir?
I'm gonna say, I
fine.
just did 3 committees, so I'm not.
I'm committed out myself,
Yeah.
so I really am.
That's- I know.
Between the bylaw review.
fresh blood
let's
in
get some
there.
Fresh blood. fresh
I'll take some punches.
You'll take some punches? No, but I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
In that respect, and I was hoping you might raise your hand.
I was waiting in this, in case, one of you guys wanna jump on it, but if not,
Well,
I'll
either-
be happy to do it, no problem, yeah, absolutely.
And it's really key, and I'll emphasize this as the current chair. And I think, and I'm not speaking for anybody else. Yeah, when you're on these committees, you have to be able to, of your own mind. You cannot allow someone to kind of force their agenda upon you. You have to think what's in the best interest of the entire town. Not what's in the best interest of you and a few of your buddies or whatever along those lines, you know what I mean? If landowners come to you and put any pressure, we want to know about it. We need to know about it, okay?
I think I can handle it.
I know you can handle it, that's not my concern.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Yeah.
fair statement.
Oh,
for
absolutely,
me to
and
make.
it's, I mean, at the end.
I don't want you to get any
Yeah.
pressure.
The reason why we're here
It's
is
a big
we wanna
deal.
do what's best for the community,
Yeah.
and that's exactly
Yep,
what we're here for.
exactly.
All right.
Yep.
That's it.
So Dennis, then, so we have, and we'll reach out to the other, I'll
Yeah,
reach
we'll
out to
reach
the
out.
chairs, okay?
Okay.
I'll do that, you don't have
Okay,
to
good.
bother, I'll do it for you. You didn't have to delegate it.
That's nice.
I've got to find a person at large though. And what I'm gonna look for is a person at large that isn't a landowner, a large landowner. I'll say no right away. And I don't know if it's my decision, but I'm gonna discourage it greatly. You know what I mean? Are you guys on board with that
Yeah,
process?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of conflict of interest, I will tell you that.
I don't know if Mr. Harkey had any questions.
Oh, sorry, sir, I don't Don Martinez, Mr. Harkey, are you one of the landowners?
Yes, but I don't think I put pressure on anyone.
Not you, I'm not, I just don't want, I'm not saying there are.
No, I'm just trying to, I know it's a very fluid situation,
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to, just like you.
Yeah.
Find out what's going on, and we're dealing with the same issue. I actually reside in Millis,
Okay,
and it is changing, ever
Oh, yeah.
changing. And I'm just trying to,
Harkey actually owns a property up on Hartford Avenue that we're looking at potentially putting a storm basin in there, and he's been extremely cooperative with us.
we're trying, and that's also.
Yeah.
well, that's what we
Yeah.
want, we want
Yeah.
folks like yourself. that
I just
work
wanted
with us and-
myself, but the prelude to a landowner and the pressure on the, just walk out of the meeting.
I'm not discouraging.
I am wearing black.
What I'm, the point I'm trying to make is I don't want any board member to feel because there's a financial interest. Because if this goes, you know the land's gonna be worth more. And who wouldn't? You own the land, you pay tax, you have every right to make as much money as you want on that land, but I don't want.
No, I simply just was, I'm not blind. I understand it has to be good for the town, that's all.
And where's your land on Hartford Ave?
It's, we have about almost 30 acres, and the town of Bellingham wants to put the drainage from their project.
Behind Larry.
Behind Larry's.
We've had it for, gosh, 40 or 50,
Wow.
a long time.
Going down Main Street.
North Main Street.
Yeah. Excellent. That's a great property.
That's great.
Why there was nothing there. for that.
We've tried a lot of different things, and nothing ever works. Yeah. So,
All right.
I'm just, so,
Do you have any questions for us?
no,
I appreciate
I'm just
you.
not as miserable as.
Sorry if I offended you.
I know it's-
I was scared of you. I think.
I'm just here.
Yeah, I think the important thing is the board wants a transparent process. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good thing for.
It's a federal word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, very good. All right.
I gotta come to work.
Usually this is.
What you're missing out on, Ron.
Think to vote on that or no?
No, I think once we go through the appointments,
We will.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have one. And then we'll need a citizen at large.
Okay.
When do we want to have the committee? ready to go, Dennis.
I
Are you gonna
think,
be?
yeah, I'll be attending them. Jim Cupfer will be
Okay.
attending those meetings as well.
Okay.
It'd be great if we could hold our first meeting no later than March.
Okay,
Get it going by then at the latest.
perfect. I'll reach out to the chairs. All right. All right, the next, we have a bid award.
Mr. Chair, I move that the contract 2023-BFSP Bellingham Fire Station painting be awarded to the low bidder, MG Painting Contractor LLC from Blackstone, Massachusetts, in the amount of $34,000, $34,400.
We have a first, we have a second, we have a first and a second, any discussion?
Crazy how the range of bids,
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
not,
The last
The
one was
first and the last.
$179,000.
You guys are automatically.
Yeah.
For long. As long as they're qualified.
yeah,
That's
if they're
absurd.
qualifying the bid.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
I would be.
All in favor?
I,
Aye, all opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, December abatements. You have those?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept December 2022 abatements. And, I know the number is actually kind of a little bit large here. I'm just gonna read it through. Actually, I kind of asked the details to Jesse. I'm glad he's here too. If you have any question, you definitely can ask him. And, capital improvement charge $135, sewer $14,963.27. Sorry, stormwater 36. Trash 97, water $11,402.35, and grand total of $26,633.62.
So it looks like we have a first, we have a second,
second,
we have a first and second discussion. I want to ask you a question. It looks like it's with one property, Bellingham Market
Yeah.
Management, that it says errors. Any insight as to what that error?
Yeah, it says right down
Right
here on the
there.
bottom.
And look, yeah, okay, I gotta scroll further over. Need a
it's right
problem.
here.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I didn't read that too, so I called Jesse and then I bothered him and then he explained that to me. It was, obviously the meter was set to cubic feet instead of gallons. That's what the discrepancy comes from.
All right,
And he was kind enough to explain that to me.
all right, so we have a first, we have a second. Any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
I,
Aye, all opposed? Motion carries.
I didn't realize that whole plaza was sold.
Yeah. I just heard that's where Whitman is, right?
Yeah.
That's probably a beautiful thing. But we didn't rest. Sorry.
All right, gift and grant.
Under your breath.
I move the board of selectmen accept the gifts and grants as listed here and the said expenditures being in the direction of the funds moving.
So we have a first, and the amount is
$80,573.
80,000. We have a first, we have a second.
Second.
First and a second, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, I call for a vote. All in favor?
I,
Aye, all opposed? Motion carries. All right, vote on January 9th minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the January 9th minutes as presented by the wonderful Hillary.
Second.
We were first, we have a second, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, I call for a vote. All in favor, say
I,
all opposed? Motion carries. Bellingham Youth Baseball Common Vic.
Motion to approve waive fee.
second,
First, we have a second to waive fee. Any questions? No. All in favor?
I,
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, Paula's not here yet, right? She's coming in or she joined?
he's right here.
Oh, I see her. Thank you. Hi, Paula.
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
Oh, we lost
Hi.
her.
How are you? You're on mute, Paula. You're still muted.
Now can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can. Thank you.
My apologies for being late,
That's okay.
technical difficulties. Thank you for hearing us today. We are back on the normal schedule for CDBG grant applications, with a little exception this year in that, because everything got backed up during COVID, we went off schedule. So the last grant application period happened a year ago last summer, because there was a CDBG CV grant in the meantime. So we're now back on the normal schedule, which is grants being submitted in March of each year, with approvals coming in July or August. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is to do two things. One is to talk a little bit about the progress on the fiscal year 21 grant, which we are currently operating. And the other is to talk about an upcoming application, a proposed application for funding for what will be, because it got backed up, they're combining 2 fiscal years of funding into one grant application. So this will be a fiscal year 22/23 application, which allows the community, a single community, to apply for up to $1.35 million. Which compares to in a normal year, the limit would be $800,000. So it's an opportunity to do a little bit more than we would normally do. So let's talk about do you want to talk about the upcoming grant first, or the progress?
Oh, I have a question. If
Yep.
we can apply up to up to 800,000 per year, and now we're combining 2 years at 1.35 million, it looks like that we've lost an opportunity to get 1.6 million.
Because DHCD makes the rules.
Okay, fair enough.
That's pretty much the beginning and end of the logic to it. They're making an assumption. They have not gotten the final commitment on the 23 money from HUD. So they're assuming that they're going to get the same amount of money from HUD to distribute among the state, the non-entitlement community in the state, that they did for 22. And that would like roughly double the amount of money. But I think they're calling some reserves, and then they have some administrative overhead and stuff. But other than that, I can't explain it to you other than to say that money comes through them and they get to decide how to distribute it. Regional applications have are allowed to apply for, I think, up to 1.5 million. And then there are a handful of what they call mini entitlement communities who get money every year. They have to submit an application, but they're guaranteed a certain amount of money every year, and they got a certain allocation from this too. So if you're interested enough, I can go and ask about the formula, but I always just take it as they make the rule. They get the money, they make the rules.
Okay, yeah, it was really just an observation. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
They did waive. Normally, you can only get 135,000 in any 2 years, because we now have an active 21 grant, which we got 800,000 for. By applying for this grant, they're waiving that $1.35 million cap. So normally, if we had 800,000 this year, in the next grant application, we could only apply for the balance going up to 135. So they did waive that. So cumulatively, for the 3-year period, it's 800 plus you could go to 135. So that's kind of the logic of it.
Okay.
And again, at your pleasure, would you prefer to talk about the 21 grant and where we are with that briefly?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
We have 2 activities on the 21 grant that we applied for. One is to continue the housing rehab program. And we're just inundated with applications for housing rehab. We've completed a couple of cases. By the time you go through all the administrative clearances and everything, we were really only able to start spending money in October. And we have completed a couple cases. We have several in the pipeline right now. And we have a waiting list of somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 homeowners who are waiting for assistance. It's of all of the towns that COG works with, Bellingham has the most consistent and highest demand for housing rehabilitation of any community that I'm aware of. There's always a waiting list. We do a lot of emergency cases, a lot of roof repairs, a lot of heating system replacements, that kind of thing. But there's just never, and there are communities in which sometimes the list gets really short and you're scrambling for people. That is never the case in Bellingham. There's always a very robust demand for the program. So that's moving forward. The other activity that we're doing in the 21 grant is we're making accessibility improvements along Harpin Street. So the whole length of the street, we're doing sidewalk repairs, putting in handicap accessible ramps, that sort of thing to make the street handicap accessible. So that is out to bid. The bids are due back on February 2nd, and Don DiMartino is expecting that that they will be required to begin construction at the beginning of April, or as soon as they're able to, as soon as weather permits, but we're anticipating the beginning of April. So those repairs should begin early spring. And that's where we are with the 21 grant. Any questions?
It's a double-edged sword having a long waiting list. It means there's a lot of need, but a lot of need means that we're that much more competitive for future funding.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know,
And this year in particular, because over COVID, housing rehab became a real issue because we were closed down completely for a while we were finishing up the 19 grant and then moving into the 21 grant. We were closed down completely for about 6 months for construction because of COVID, because people didn't want people in their houses and there were all kinds of new COVID restrictions. And then as soon as those were lifted, we ran into the supply chain and inflation factor. So we're it's been, I'll give you an example. In a normal world pre-COVID, to get windows, which is a big component in most of our projects, both because of the energy efficiency, but it's also how when we need to do a de-leading on a property, rather than scrape and paint windows, which is really fraught. You can like send them out and have them, they call them dipping it, where you dip it in solvent and it removes the lead, but sometimes the windows fall apart when you're doing that. So we just replace them with energy efficient windows. In pre-COVID, we could get windows on 3 weeks notice. We could order them and get them in on 3 weeks notice. I have had projects, including in Bellingham, where it has taken us 4 or 5 months now to get the windows after we order them. And then if something comes in and there's a wrong size or something, you have to ship it back. We've got projects that normally our projects, we require the contractors to start within 30 days of when we sign the contracts and be done within 60 days. I've had projects that are going 6 months, which has slowed down the program. That has happened across the state. And so for this new grant application, they're actually asking you to do a justification that you be able to spend the money in a timely manner if you're asking for money in housing rehab. I am not anticipating that being an issue in Bellingham for the reasons that we just talked about. The other thing is that the costs are really escalating. They've raised their per unit cap, which is the amount of money that we are allowed to spend on a single unit of housing, has escalated from $30,000 a couple of years ago to it's now up to 40, and there's like a kicker of an additional 5,000 if you have to do lead paint, asbestos, handicapped accessibility, historic preservation, or septic systems. Those, if the project involves any of those 5 things, then you can automatically get an extra 5,000. Any project that's going to cost more than the per unit cap, you have to get a waiver of the per unit cap, both from the town. And then if the town approves it, it goes to the state and they have to approve it. So again, that slows down the process a little bit, but we're now at the 21 grant, the limits are 40 and 45. And for the proposed 22-23 grant that we're looking at applying for, they've raised them to 40 and 50. So the state is recognizing that the costs are escalating on all of the housing rehab programs. So that's also changing. So yes, it does in fact make us more competitive that you have a long list of applicants. Now, keep in mind, some of them aren't going to be eligible. Some of them won't meet the income guidelines. We had one we had to turn down recently because it was over $80,000. We could get a waiver for it. So, you know, not everybody is gonna, not all 50 of the people on the waiting list are gonna actually become projects. And sometimes people, believe it or not, walk away when it comes their turn. We call them where they either, there's something going on in their lives or they're not ready to do it or whatever. And so we allow them to reapply later if they want to, but you know, it's still a nice cushion of a list to start with. We have also, as we agreed to do when we made the application for the current grant, the one that we're doing now, we reached out, we're doing a mailing to the census block groups that border Woonsocket and Blackstone, the lower, if you're looking at the map, the lower left-hand corner of Blackstone, because that area has both the highest percentage of low and moderate income homeowners, as well as the oldest housing, among the oldest housing stock in the town. So we've done a specific mailing to that target area, which is going out in the next week or so. And we're expecting to be inundated with those applications as well. So that's the current program in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Any questions?
Great.
Great, no, great update, thank you.
Okay.
Waiting for, thank you.
So now she's gonna present the new grant.
Yep,
right?
new grant, yep.
Now, the new grant, we met with, we're proposing to continue and we spoke with Dennis and with Don DiMartino at DPW. Because of the additional available money, we wanted to see if there were some bigger projects that we could do. To be eligible for CDBG, I believe you all received a handout that sort of gives you an overview of the program and talks about what things are eligible and what things are not. Infrastructure projects are eligible, but an infrastructure project has to be it's what they call an area-wide benefit. So it has to be done in a census tract or block group that has at least 52%. The population in that block group is 52% or more low and moderate income, defined as up to 80% of, low and moderate income. Yeah, 52%. It have to be under 80% of median income. So as a blessing and a curse, Bellingham in the last few years has done remarkably well, and we have no census tracts, no block groups presently that meet that criteria. So that becomes an issue in doing street projects, restructuring streets and doing, you know, sewer systems and road work and that sort of thing. Because certain things in CDBG, you qualify them as benefiting low and moderate income by the area that they're in. Things like parks, infrastructure projects, that sort of thing. Housing rehab, on the other, is it qualifies individually. So each individual household is income qualified. So they could live in your least low income neighborhood, and and it happens all the time. We have elderly people who've been in their houses forever, and they're now living on very fixed incomes or social security or that sort of thing. And the fact that their property is located in a higher income area of town doesn't mean they have the money to afford it. So in something like housing rehab or most public service kinds of projects, we qualify people based on the individual household income as opposed to the income of the area. An exception to that area income qualification is anything that is considered benefiting disabled people and seniors essentially are considered to be categorically low and moderate income. So disabled adults, actually, they do restrict it to disabled adults. So we have done in the last 2 grants, we're about to go out for Harpin Street to make the architectural barrier removal project to put the ramps in and make the street accessible to people in wheelchairs and people with physical disabilities. We did North Main Street in the prior grant. You've probably seen the improvements driving down North Main Street from Hartford Avenue down to about where City Hall is, Town Hall is. This year we're doing Harpin Street, so we're looking, because we can do that without having it to be in an area that has a census block group where it's low and moderate income. We looked for projects that we could do that were ABR projects, and Don and Dennis have identified several of those. Because to submit the grant application for one of those projects, you have to have bid-ready specs and plans when you submit the grant application, and that's no small undertaking. So the project that is most ready to move forward is to do barrier removals, accessibility improvements and barrier removals at the parks along Blackstone Street. So they're working, that one is like, that's kind of the low hanging fruit in the sense that they're the furthest along and being able to actually have full drawings and bid specs available by the time we have to submit the grant, which is March 3rd. So that was, and then there are a series of other things that were smaller projects that were related to your complete streets projects, where they're in the middle of, they're doing some of the planning now, but none of those are going to be ready in time for us to do an application and get the specs to the point where we could submit them for this grant. Something to consider for future grants, but the Blackstone and Dennis, please.
Yep, essentially what it is what we looked at is when people go to the Blackstone Street fields, soccer fields in particular, soccer, football. If you're in a wheelchair, really it's a difficult time to get, or a difficult process to get to, say, the far end of the field. If you have a child or a relation that's playing down the far end and you park at the handicap spot on the access road, very difficult because it's rough terrain. Essentially what we're going to put in for a grant, picture the rail trails that we have, the newly installed, the same type surface, same type width, going around that entire upper level soccer, football, lacrosse complex. So if you're in a wheelchair, you'd be able to get out of your vehicle up that access road and be able to circle around the entire area. It's about 0.4 of a mile. The other benefit is, aside from handicap accessibility, be a wonderful place for people to walk. People love to go to the track and walk. This is the track's a 1/4 mile. This is almost a 1/2 mile. So it's a huge, I think if we're successful getting this grant, I think it'll have a real positive impact. Obviously, I met with Michael and Mike Reed as well, who's on the committee that's looking at the fields, and I know that you think as well that it would be
absolutely, it's part of the master plan, and it's a small portion that we can pick off. Biggest challenge we have, there's dogs, people walking dogs, we can mitigate.
Yep.
Yeah, it's referenced in your conservation plan and in your ADA transition plan too, which also is helpful. And I'm a grandmother who is like, I'm facing knee surgery. And it's killing me that I can't go to all of my grandson's baseball games anymore because some of the fields where they play are just, I can't, it's steep hills and things like that I just can't get through anymore. So I think that will make a lot of grandparents in your community very happy.
They're well maintained, obviously, if you go to the rail trail, it's not like they fall apart, very solid, process, it's good drainage and, as Michael said, it's part of the master plan coincidentally, so it's great from a handicap perspective and also great from a community benefits, perspective. So it's about a $400,000 project is what it's estimated at, so.
Yeah, Don said the other day it might be as much as 5.
Yeah, so it's no, it's a lot of money and to go to town meeting for something like that when there are a lot of other projects, it'd be difficult, but this is something that fits into this grant criteria and it does remove a significant barrier that some people will obviously be able to take great advantage of.
Great, that's a wonderful idea.
Yep. So we'll be doing the typical housing rehab, which is about $800,000 or so in units. And also depending on how much this costs and as well as this project. So that's what we're looking at for this. That's what we're looking at for this round of funding.
Excellent.
And we've
Yeah.
been extremely successful and to no small measure when you listen to Paula talk about it. Paula's been handling our grants for years and very meticulous, very conscientious about the submittal. And there aren't too many communities in the Blackstone Valley. You won't find any actually that have been as successful as we have. If you look at the history here, I think we've missed out once or twice since 1985 when the program first came in. So we've been incredibly successful and COG's been with us for most of those years. They do a tremendous job. And as you know, the administrative fee is built into the grant. So out of pocket, it doesn't cost the town anything. And these housing rehab projects are forgiven after 15 years. So it truly is a grant if you stay in your home. You sell your home, there's a lien on the property, there's some payback. But if you stay in your home, you have to pay back for the improvements, provided you're income eligible, obviously.
Yeah, the purpose of the program is to help keep people safely in their homes. So if they live there for 15 years, the whole loan is forgiven. We secure it with a mortgage, but with a lien, but at the end of 15 years, it gets forgiven. Depending on when the money is paid back, sometimes it comes back as what they call program income, which means that it has to go back into a fund to do other community development activities like other rehab projects. Older loans, and in the early days of these loans, they were perpetual grants. They were just, you paid them back when you sold your house, and there wasn't a 15-year limit to it. And some of those loans, the older loans, if the grant from which the loan was issued has been closed out for more than 5 years, then that money comes back to the town as miscellaneous income and you can use it for anything. So that's a benefit as well.
Any questions? No?
I think you got a big thumbs up also.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice job.
Fantastic.
Okay, and the purpose of public hearing is to make sure that everybody has an opportunity in the community to submit their ideas for things. The caveat being that if you want to do an infrastructure project, there's just not enough time. I mean, we should be creating a list of projects for future grants so that we can be working towards them. But public comments, when we advertised, we said people could submit public comments by mail or email to the town administrator. We are accepting those comments until this week, Friday at noon. So anyone who's listening, who is interested in submitting comments either on the current program and how it's being run or the proposed grant application can do so until Friday noontime.
Let me leave the public hearing.
Any action that the board needs to take? Can they close the public hearing, or are there any votes that need to be taken, Paul?
Not today, but what will happen is it won't be a public hearing, but in February, we'll ask to be on the agenda. And at that point, because we have to wait for other public comments before we can finalize what's going into this grant. And so in the February meeting, I forget the date, we will be asking to be on the agenda, and then at that point, we will be asking for votes to approve the grant for the activities and the amount, and to authorize the town administrator and finance director to sign whatever paperwork is necessary, and for the board to designate the town administrator to be the environmental certifying agent, which is each project has to have an environmental review. And so he is the one who would sign off on all that paperwork. These are the routine votes we take for every grant.
Yeah, there is no environmental issues with this grant. That's why I can sign off.
Yeah, well, every individual housing, because we don't know when we start a grant what
I mean,
individual
what
properties
nature,
we're gonna
right.
do.
Does the
So,
board need to take, can the board close the public hearing tonight?
yeah, absolutely.
We should close it, then we'll open it back up. at our next
No, it
meeting.
doesn't,
Yeah,
it's not
no,
gonna be, the next one won't be a public hearing.
The next one doesn't have to be a public hearing, it just be an agenda item on the board, on the
Oh,
regular agenda.
Will you be ready on February 6th?
Yep, comments have to be in by this Friday, so we could do that then.
Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a first, we have a second, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Paula, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
on
thanks
the
very
6th.
much. Okay.
All right. Yeah, any old business?
I actually have something I'd like to bring up under old business if I
Okay.
could.
Absolutely.
So after our last meeting, I've done a tremendous amount of thinking. I think there were some great points that were brought up in regards to, the school budget, but maybe lack of a mechanism as to how we could be more active in that budget process. And so I got to thinking how we could try and figure this out, because ultimately, I'll admit, I've got 6.5 more years in the school system, so I have a lot at stake in this. We are elected by the residents of the town, and we're elected to look out for the best interest of our residents and everyone in our community. So I do think that it's important for us to maybe sit down with the school department as a whole board and go through the budget and go through what we are allowed to give and take from their budget in regards to other fiscal monies that we have that we can help to give them. We have a CFO, we have you. And we can use that as great reference points and for people to give us their educated opinions and what they think we should do. But ultimately, I feel like we should have some say in how we can go about using some money that we have. Now, I mean, Betsy brought up, we've had some really good new growth this year. We'll have some more new growth next year. I don't see why, as a board, we can't have a full meeting with the school department ahead of our budget hearing and go from there.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about was having Mike Reed and Peter come in and certainly present their budget. I don't think, at first I thought this is where you were going, where we would agree and disagree with the items in their budget. Obviously, they've got a line item budget. Their budget, not that they would, but they could spend it on popcorn if they wanted to. I mean, it's not broken down like ours is, salaries, expenses by department. And I think that what you'll get from me in another week and a half is a balanced budget with an amount that we feel we can support for the schools. Obviously, I've had that conversation with Mr. Morano and Mr. Reed. And certainly the board sitting with the school department, going over priorities, going over items that maybe they feel they won't be able to address. Certainly a prerogative as the select board.
I think there's a lot to that some don't understand with the Bellingham is a great community, especially when it comes to our students who have extra needs. And with that, it also brings a lot of financial burden to the town that we have to come up with. We also have a very decent sized population of students who are extremely bright, self-starters. But you've got about 40% of the school population who then kind of gets lost because they don't fall into either one of those categories. And I think that there are things, having looked through past budgets and being on finance, that I've been able to see some of those details that I think there are ways that we can work to make sure that everyone is serviced in a way that they should. Now, that's my opinion. I won't put that opinion on anyone else on the board, but it's no secret that I've been pretty vocal about the budget process, especially when it, came to the schools from the background that I came from. That's just how I feel, and the board can agree or disagree, but
I completely understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I've had a conversation with Mike Reed, with Peter, to understand their budget process, because we didn't have it in this last meeting. Like, okay, what I was trying to understand where it wasn't right. So I wanted to understand what is their budget process. They have a wish list, and they have certain requirements, they have contractual obligations. They look at all that, and at the same time talk to Mary. She's now working on what our revenue projections are going to be for fiscal year 24, right? We're in 23 right now. She's not going to know until another month, because what she said, the governor actually has, the new governor has some leeway to submit her budget. So Mary can kind of give us an idea of what, and give the school committee an idea of what they have to work with. And we've had a lot of funding because we have, but at the same time, there's only so much we can do with Prop 2.5, right? We know we can just go there. One of the things that Mary, from a finance structural standpoint, said that we're getting these, next year, I think it's another $500,000 through more taxation, through property tax, et cetera. But what happens in 2 or 3 years, what she is advising as the CFO, is if we need to buy Chromebooks or do something along those lines, for capital expenditure, do that. But to actually have contractual obligations and other things go up or add new services where we might have 500,000 more coming in next year, we may not have that in FY25 or FY26. So she's being somewhat conservative. And because I said the same thing, we have this money coming in, where is it going? Why aren't we spending it? And she educated me, because I wanted to understand. She spent some time educating me. And I get it, and Mike Reed has offered up, they have budget workshops going on with the school committee. And if we want to attend, we can attend those budget workshops. That'll help educate us on the process they're going through and the difficult decisions, because there's no, as Mr. Morano said, we are absolutely, as a community, challenged with individuals for special needs, and that the costs are exorbitant. They're going up, and I couldn't agree more. But we've got the price, where the kids, what are they doing for the kids in the middle? And I think sometimes it looks like they've got to pay Peter or rob Peter to pay Paul. And that's kind of how I was when I talked to Peter. Those are some of the challenges. We've got to drop an English class or drop a social studies, because the English teacher can teach social studies or whatever it was, the example that he gave. It's not difficult. We don't have an endless supply of money to feed the school system. We just don't.
So that conversation that you had might have been a conversation that would have benefited the whole board. One,
We can have that.
two, those are all great points, and I totally understand that. But then, as a board, shouldn't we have some say in where?
Well, we don't actually. They do they're responsible for their own budget in the school committee, that's their position.
If I could interject from the last meeting, if I could. I guess my point is, as someone who has a school budget that I have to do, we spin our wheels for 8 weeks. I go to the budget workshop and then I'll put it out there. I came up with my budget, as did every principal in the school. Mr. Morano's number was 2.6 million, which was a ultimate wish list item. We then had to get into a room and cut $1.6 million. And people are just throwing out like, well, if I do away with this, doesn't mean it's a good thing to do away with it. That means, how do you get down to $1 million? And at some point in 4 weeks, maybe longer, they'll come to a final number. Some numbers from Mr. Morano. So I assume these are right because he sent them along. In 2017, the school budget says here was about 24.1 million. And the dollar amount changes are listed through 2023. And the most recent 2023 number is now 886,421. I have no idea how we got back to that number, but the thing that struck me is if you take the 2018 through 2023 numbers, the 5-year average increase in the school budget is 3.2%. Now, in a Prop 2.5 world, without new revenue, that seems low. If you take out the override of 1.5 million, the average increase in the school department over 5 years is 2%.
I know that, the numbers that we're looking at now are about 3.5%, last year to this year. Keep in mind that your retirement board doesn't care what Proposition 2.5 is. The biggest item we have in our budget, health insurance, doesn't care what Prop 2.5 is. I mean, those have, you know, our retirement contributions going up by $500,000 this year. Health insurance will probably go up by 300 or 400. Total new revenue to the town will be about $2 million. So when total new revenue to the town is about $2 million, and we're talking just over $1 million for schools, $500,000 for retirement, we've got health insurance. I mean, it adds up quick.
So,
You know,
looking at the 2021 number, the budget for the schools went up $1,530,843, which I assume
1,500,000.
says 1.53 odd, which included the override, which means the schools got $30,843 over the previous year, which is, I am questioning that number.
Yeah, me too, because I thought the number with the override was over $2 million. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure if he's factoring in transportation in that number. Because transportation, and then the 2022 number, he shows a 0 increase. Now,
Well, transportation isn't in his budget,
Yeah,
so why would he
separate
show the
line
number? It's not in his budget, it's in the town budget.
They get to keep their receipts in the transportation.
Oh, I know,
We paid for
it's not,
it, so
there's,
that's-
it needs to be in their budget, the transportation should be in the school
I think it's
budget.
one of the things we talked about was,
Yep.
was looking to put it in.
But again, I think that everything that we're talking about is coming back to that larger conversation that there's a lot of separate conversations happening that need to all be happening at one table with everyone around it.
So my conversation, and I've been chasing Mike Reed down for quite some time now, and we finally will get together. I want to get educated, I want to understand, like you I went to get an education, and I got my education so that I could really understand where Michael is coming from in his conversations, the conversations that you might be having. Everyone's had separate conversations. If this is being brought up because I had a conversation with him, it was my personal responsibility to learn and to get educated. It wasn't decision-making. It was an education
I
discussion.
think to my point is, probably a month ago, I expressed some consternation over, I feel like we rubber stamp things.
Yeah.
And it seems to me is, instead of people making cuts, adding things back, to be very, very comfortable with the number that's being given to the school, as opposed to being told it's X.
I got a question. You mentioned that as a town as a whole, and it's, we break down all the numbers in the details. And you said the school doesn't do that. School, did I catch that right?
Yes, they do, but it's in a
Okay.
giant,
They do,
it's not,
voted as a single number.
yeah,
Like, we'll have a Department of Public Works, Inspectional Services, Town Administration, and each one is voted individually. And each of those budgets have to be managed within the confines of whatever's approved by town meeting. School department, they have a single line item. School department is approved for $25 million. They've got $25 million. They can spend it however they want, as long as it's legal expenditures. They can spend it all on salaries if they want. They can have, 20 English teachers if they
They're full
don't
discretion.
have,
I
Is
look
that
at,
where we lose all this, I'm just trying to understand you just a little bit more. Is that where we get things a little more complicated? We have questions about it? Is that? or
well,
just-
so,
We
so-
wanna know the details. Is that what it is? I'm just trying to wrap my
I
head
think for
around.
me, it's to determine what's the minimum we can give them and what's the maximum we can give them, because we have the discretion when we do our budget to cut other people's budget to make up the difference. If we wanted to take $15,000 out of the police department's budget for conferences
Yeah.
and give it to the school department, we can do that.
Mhm.
I feel like we've been having this conversation for
Yeah,
a number
yes.
of years
Yeah.
now. And so why can't
Well,
we
you had
change
Mr.
it?
Morano and Mr. Reed in here in August to present the school budget. I mean, we
Right.
talked when they were here last time about having them come in February. Mr. Morano offered to do that. So I think you're gonna have that opportunity. Again, you're going to have a budget presented by me, which is what the charter says I need to do by the end of the month. It's gonna have a number in there for the schools, because I can't present a balanced budget without including the biggest piece, so you'll have that.
Right.
But you can certainly change it. I mean,
I-
the
I-
budgets that presented to town meeting is your budget, not mine. I'll give you about something to work off of, and then you go from there.
But I'm confused. The $1 million question here is, we've been talking, and you brought up a really good point, Cindy, Mrs. McNulty. We've been talking about it for a long time. And what I'm hearing Michael say is we need to change the way the process works. I hear Mrs. Grant saying the same thing, but she'd like to see more funding go. It sounds like she also wants more funding to go to the school. I think we all would love to have more funding. Is the process broken?
I would like
Is
to,
it, if it's broken, where's it broken? And what are your suggestions to fix it? So just sitting here, what are your suggestions to fix
I
it?
think it's a timing thing, because the school department started our budgets probably October 1st. We had to present them by Christmas. And within 2 weeks of having them presented, I was in a room cutting my budget dramatically, as was every department in the school. And it seems that how we get to the end result is troubling.
I agree.
And I think it's more evident to me because I see it from the school side as well.
How can we fix it?
I can tell you on the municipal side, it happens the same way.
Yeah.
The fire chief comes in every year and asks for 4 firemen.
Yeah.
The police chief comes in and asks for 3 or 4 police officers. Departments come in and make requests for things.
Yeah.
We can't afford them, we cut them out. Then you can meet with them, and I know the board at different times has made suggestions that, we want to get the police back up to 30 police officers where we've been. We want to get the fire, but, I mean, there are constraints. You'll have all the numbers, you'll see where the money is, and if you make a decision that, hey, we want to take the $15,000 for conferences out of the police budget, and we want to, give it to, a special ed program, you can do that. But not give it a special ed program, give it to the school. Then the school committee is going to decide, obviously, how the money's allocated.
right,
But,
But what you just said, Dennis, I feel like is not part of our process right now, and I think it should be. And I don't know how to get there. Because
yes.
we never, very rarely do we have questions with what you come to us because we understand the process. I think that's what Mrs. Grant is saying is that, and what you're saying, Michael, is it's not,
We have 2 Saturday budget workshops scheduled for the first 2 Saturdays in February. So,
but you've already done so
I'm-
much work prior to that.
yeah,
it seems
but we
like,
now
right?
are presenting to the school committee, so all the
Okay.
cuts have been made. And then at some point, the superintendent theoretically comes back and says, well, there's an extra 150,000 based on the number that's been given. And from the wish list items, he can then determine Who gets that hundred and
So
fifty?
maybe your process is, the school committee is starting too early.
Yeah.
And until we have more guidance from our CFO as to where we're gonna end up from a revenue standpoint, what we might get from the state. It
What was
sounds
the-
to me like it's more aggravating for you to go through everything you've gone through and then get here and then.
What was conflicting for me is I thought I heard a number saying that, Mary said that we had 500,000 of new growth.
Mhm.
Yet 2 months ago, Betsy was here saying it'd be another million.
1.3, it's in our minutes, 1.3 million in new growth.
Yeah, that's what we certify.
Yep.
Now, what we're projecting is next year, the year beginning July first, not the year
Yeah.
that we're in right now. The year that we're in right now, that's what we use to set the tax rate and spend for this year.
Mhm.
You know, what we have for next year, different story. Keep in mind, what Michael's describing is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
He's meeting with the superintendent and department heads.
Yeah.
I've got a week today, tomorrow, Wednesday, meeting with department heads, going through budgets, seeing what we can trim back, seeing where we can, make cuts, et cetera. So we do the same things. Obviously, the school pieces are much bigger. We have more fixed costs that are very big numbers.
Right.
Health insurance is fixed, retirement's fixed. The bill that we get from Blackstone Votech is pretty much fixed based on the number of students we have. So there's not a lot of play there. So typically, if we're gonna get into anything, we're gonna get into, police and fire and holding back. What we've done for years is we told them not to fill vacant positions. That's how those positions got so low, because we weren't able to afford to fill them.
So 2 things come to mind as problems. I mean, and I don't think it's their fault, but you look at the school committee negotiates union contracts. And the value of the increases in those union contracts exceeds what we're giving them. Close to $1 million more.
Yeah.
So is the analysis missing of that impact? Because they signed a contract
Right,
that is tying our hands.
yeah,
The second component is COVID, because we moved money around because we had so much money handed to us under COVID, and we did a lot of great things. But we also have a $1.5 million override that we need to sustain.
You get the $1.5 million, you put it into your budget 1 year, you don't get it again next year. It's gone. That's your new base. It's not like.
I agree that's a new base, but if you had another 2% growth, it's 2% more than the $1.5 million.
Yeah.
How they can, I'm sorry, how they can sign a contract without knowing if you're gonna afford it or not?
Well, they can afford it. I mean, they'll always be able to
It
afford
all
it,
depends on what you want to cut.
but the affording is gonna be.
That's what
you
issue
wanna
comes
cut.
in. So basically, you just sign in or agreeing things, someone just blindsided and you hope you're gonna be making it. I mean, is that what we just said?
I don't know if they expect to make it, they
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
they look at the economics.
Okay.
Yeah, it's no different than what we do on the municipal side. We end up not filling police positions and not filling fire
The
positions.
timing of it, I mean,
Yeah.
he's been doing that for.
Yeah, we know legally we have to have a balanced budget, so we have to do whatever it takes to make the numbers work. And if it means not filling positions that we have vacant right now, DPW is looking at 2 new positions. Right now, there are 2 vacant in the police side. I know the fire chief has 2 positions that we told him to go fill. I mean, these are the types of decisions now that we may very well say, you know what, hold off on that. Don't fill those positions, but those are decisions that have to be made in order before they're filled, because once they're filled, it's a lot worse to have to go and lay people off. Obviously, we don't want to do that. We'd rather leave them empty, but
So in a way, what you're saying, and I maybe support what Mrs. Grant is saying, if we had more involvement in understanding where the school needs funding to get to their achievement levels that they so desire, to fix that 40%, look at it as a whole, see, do we really need those 2 additional DPW workers, or can we shift that money over and give the school more money? That's it. Well, the other thought is, if you're saying, hey, listen, it shouldn't be 2 separate budget processes, it should all be one, then that means that we come up with a whole new form of government here in the town of Bellingham, and we don't have what we have today. Like other towns have, hey, it's one budget. But you don't want
the
that.
well, no, the legal authority for the
Right.
school budget is the school committee.
Right, but if
got
you,
no-
but if you change it, if you went to like a city type government.
You still have it, just like in Franklin.
Yeah.
Franklin is a
Yeah, the
city
school
type of-
committee.
They have a school committee, they negotiate their contracts and, you
Understood.
know, they present their budget.
But at
so.
the end of the day, it's like the councilmen approve the entire budget.
Much like
Not-
a town meeting.
so, yeah, yeah.
I would be very much interested and supportive of being a person who's involved in the budget process from the beginning. And then there's more transparency when it comes to our board being involved in the beginning.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I don't.
Like the beginning, when you start the budget process for the whole town, having someone almost like a liaison between this
Like
this
you
board and
said,
like working with you with department heads going
Yeah,
through their budgets,
I
you
think
know?
that's why you have a town administrator and a finance office, you know, to put that together and then present it to you. And you have the whole month of February. You could meet once a week if you wanted to. It's the board's choice to meet that one time, the end of February, but you could start and spend a lot more time going through every single budget if that's what you wanted to do. But you gotta start from a balanced point. You've got what the towns, you have what the department submitted for their requests. And then you have what I've recommended. So you can say, hey, Dennis, the fire chief's looking for 1.2 million. You're saying 1 million. What did you cut?
Yeah,
It's there, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's there in all the detail. You know? So it's not a matter of, you know, the information's all there. It's just a matter of taking the time to, you know, go through the meetings, go through the information and deciding, hey, you know what, we don't need this many firemen or this many policemen or this much staff. Let's turn around and try and increase funding to the schools. If that's the position we want to take.
I'm gonna table this discussion further because I think we're beating the dead horse at this point. Unless we come up with some tangible recommendations on how we approach it, it would have to be next year, or how we get more involved through the ending of this year.
It's too late to
I-
to do anything. I think you can certainly, the school committee is going to come in. I mean, Peter and Mike offered to come in February. I mean, when they were
I'm gonna go
here,
to
that's what
the-
they offered.
And I plan on those 2 Saturdays.
Yeah.
To go to the workshop, just because I want to experience it. I've never been to them.
Yeah.
I want to go and understand it better.
Sure.
You know, because it's kind of one of those things, they've been handling it, but the points that everyone's making are all valid points. So it's incumbent upon me to educate myself, and that's what I'm doing. So anybody else wants to go?
I've been to them before. They are very
Very
important,
good.
for sure.
So I'll let Mr. Reed know that, the members of the select board would like to attend.
And we would like them to come in and present to the board when, because that was when they were here, they offered to do that.
So what, that
first, February sixth?
That's probably too early.
For them.
For them. The end of February.
the 11th.
Of February, so the second meeting in February.
We'll have to
Yeah.
schedule another one, because we only have the sixth and then the budget.
Yeah.
Workshop. But the
Unless we want
17th,
them to come in, that's the budget workshop there.
Well, is the workaround though, maybe us going to their budget meetings Kelly?
I think we have to go to see. I really don't know.
versus,
Having-
you know, in other words,
Yeah.
versus scheduling another meeting?
I think we can
That's
decide
gonna
on
give you the-
February 6th.
I don't know, we can talk about what, but
wait,
it's not really open.
February sixth is too early though.
No,
No, I'm saying for us to make it, if we, you know, if we go to the first one on the 4th, and understand, we might have a little more information, and then we can ask them to come in. On the 6th, we can decide if we want them, when we want them to come in and present to us. That's all I'm saying.
That's potential liability of 600,000 if we were on schedule to be fully funded by 2029.
Is a formula they use, and there's some question as to whether or not we'll be fully funded by 2029 or it could be 2030. But anyway, there's some actuaries that
That's the one
look at
that
it.
surprised me the most.
Yeah, 600,000.
600,000.
Proposition 2.5 generates about $2.2 million.
Yep.
Okay, definitely generates $1.2 million.
I would have thought the actuarial tables through 2029 would have told us what our commitment is, unless the pension funds have lost money, we're making that up.
Well, that definitely, I'm sure took a hit,
Yes.
and, you know, I'm sure they took a hit on that. And one of the things when, they reviewed, the actuaries looked at, the estimates that the county was using, they felt that they were being too aggressive with their rate of return. So that's why
Yep.
they're saying it could be 30 or 31.
Thank you.
But, yeah, that'll be a huge, benefit on that numbers. But yeah, the pension this year is up $600,000.
Is there any additional old business? Any new business? Dennis?
I have.
Mr. Hall was here.
Oh, can I just say one thing real
Yep.
quick? I wanted to, just make an announcement that we opened up the appointment process for 2023. It's on the website, boards and committee openings. We've received some incumbent forms, but there's several openings out there. And-
We'll just Primavera from there.
They're working on it right now. Yeah, they're doing the asbestos abatement. If you drive down, you see fencing all around it, but when the wrecking ball will actually be hitting the walls, I'm not sure, but they had to take out all the asbestos, like everything that was inside of it, they took out.
All right, new business. On the agenda is litter control discussion. So I know we've spent a fair amount of time talking about the increased litter on various roads within this town. Mr. Hall had sent a letter to the board, which I received. We had a conversation. You can see the concerned citizens, especially with the amount of litter that's on High Street, and that it's a never increasing amount of litter. So I can just say that I've had conversations with Mr. Frayne. I've had conversations with Mr. O'Connell, who's the planning board chairman. One of the things that the planning board has been doing over the last, I'd say the last two large projects that have been approved, is that they've asked for funding to help mitigate our pollution problem. We have this fund that we can use and access at our discretion. We just have to determine what we're going to do with it. Are we going to use that money to hire high school students in summer to help mitigate some of the, are we going to use that money to bring in the sheriff's department to help us with inmates on the inmate release program type thing? So we're exploring a lot of alternatives right now. It is a problem. It's an ever increasing problem. And it's not just on Maple and High Street, it's Depot Street. Mr. O'Connell shared with me that on Harpin, we've seen several nip bottles. So it's a problem we have throughout the town, and I'm sure every community has problems. We see more of it because we certainly have a lot more increased commercial traffic in our town. With the employees coming to town, who knows? I will say I walk Maple Street a lot. You can't point a finger at Amazon. I've never seen them throw anything out. But then again, they may see me walking, so they don't throw it out. I don't know. But the thing is, it's a problem. I mean, I see tires, I see a number of things everywhere. So did you, Mr. Paul, would you like to say something? You're certainly more than welcome to come up here and address. We're open to ideas, suggestions.
You summed it up pretty well there. Just living on High Street and having been there for 24 years, it's to the point now where, I mean, it's just unacceptable by any standard. You just can't have much litter in the town. Not just High Street, but Maple Street. And it's gotten significantly worse in the past 2 or 3 years. Now, I don't know how many of you drive down High Street on a daily basis, probably none of you, but I do. And I also drive Maple Street. I mean, there's urine bottles. I mean, there's all manner of all kinds of just, I mean, it's pretty gross. So I guess my position is, or my question is, we have a problem. It's not even like you can deny there's a problem or say, well, it's just bad in the summer or whatever. It's gotten significantly worse. You live on Maple Street, so you know. And, you know, can you blame Amazon? No, absolutely not. But I think it kind of dovetails into my other concern. You know, there's 100 trips a day up and down my street from Amazon trucks. Now, I've heard that there's nothing we can do about it. And I've also heard they're not supposed to be doing that. But I don't know if there's any teeth in what you've negotiated with them and or what can be done about it. So, you know, again, I'm not blaming Amazon, but, you know, we've been sold you know, and I don't have any problem with people developing their property, and I get it. There's been a lot of warehousing and, you know, all kinds of increased traffic and trips everywhere. But the tax revenue that it generates, you know, some of that there's gotta be some sort of a litter program or something. I don't know what the answer is, but those are kind of a couple solutions that can be done. I've talked to people in the waste management business, and there's really no, I mean, I don't know that anyone does. You can Google it and you can find people, entrepreneurs that have made businesses out of it. I'm not saying that I'm gonna start a business, but you know, that it's just at an unacceptable point. I don't know how anyone could live, you know, like that. As Kelly said, or as Fred said, you know, you're elected to kind of help, you know, the whole town as a whole. And I think if we don't do something about it, it's just gonna continue. It's just gonna get worse because it just invites people to just litter more.
So, and I appreciate you coming here and speaking. The challenge with, like, the planning board is now doing this. We've been saying this for a long time. The challenge is with the conditions that they put into the agreement, they're good, but it's a one-time fee, and there really is no teeth unless and I'm sure we have laws. We have to catch the person littering in the act.
Right.
To find them to do anything with them. So it's rather challenging. It's more, to me, it's like almost a community needs to come together, keep Bellingham clean type of effort and work with the various larger industries. I mean, to me, and I'm not picking on Dunkin' Donuts, but as many nip bottles that are out there, you can find an empty Dunkin'
Yeah,
Donuts
I mean,
cup. So do we approach the Dunkin' Donuts franchisees to say, hey, we'd like you to participate, either help us clean up with your employees or contribute to the fund annually? Now we're dipping into their bottom line. It's not an expected expense. But I do agree, something needs to be done. But then we take this money, how do we apply those funds? Who do we hire?
I think that's gonna be the biggest challenge. If
Yeah,
you
it
do some
is.
research to find out who litter picks on the sides of roads like this. And what does the town, you know, DPW is not gonna do it. I know you've got a twice a year thing with the Board of Health, which is great, but it's a community volunteer thing and weather dependent and so many other things. So I think I can see how the sausage is made. Things don't happen, you know, as quickly as we'd like, but I think the town or the selectmen or whoever's in charge and collectively, whatever, if you need some, you know, citizens to get involved. I'm not sure what we can do, but you gotta come up with a plan because it's just gonna keep getting worse. And like you said, it's not just Depot Street or Maple Street, but I mean, this is conservation land, is it not? Across the street from my house, that's conservation land. So then you've got the Charles River there, and I don't know if it's an estuary or protected riverway or whatever, but all this garbage is eventually finding its way and polluting, and there's all manner of, you know. So you've got that, and that's a scenic road, is it not, Maple Street? It's a joke to call it a scenic road. You know what I mean? So people see it and people just get used to it, and then it just perpetuates itself, so. If we can get somebody to do something, that'd be
Well,
great.
I'll throw it back at you. Maybe we need to form some sort of committee or an organization to come up with a structure where we can get more cleaning and work with we could call it whatever, Citizens for Clean Bellingham. How'd you like to organize it?
I'll get involved, but I think
know,
that the
I
nuts
don't
and bolts,
mean to put you on the spot.
the nuts and bolts of it to me are, do you have the money? You probably do. And how are you going to execute that with who? Someone's got to find these vendors or contractors or get creative. We talked about it offline. I mean, can the school do it? You know, maybe, Mr. Connor, can you comment on that? And when I was a kid and I got in trouble, I had to pick up trash.
Believe it or not, they can't even suspend kids anymore.
Yeah,
at the high
I
school.
figured
They
that
have
was the
diversion
answer.
programs.
I figured that was the answer. So,
Get me started.
let me ask, I mean,
Not do it.
could someone, if there was a business that did this, would the town hire them, or do they have to go through a long bid process? It's gonna be super difficult to get it done.
It's probably a bid, yeah.
But one of the things that we could look at doing, and Jesse's here, we have an army, 10, 12 individuals that cut all the storm basins in town in the summertime. One of the things that we can look at is what would it take, maybe one day a week. We utilize them. Obviously, they have to have safety equipment. We'd have to have somebody, because they're in busy streets, so we have to
Yeah,
make sure
yeah.
they're safe. Picking equipment, but maybe one day a week, at least in the summertime, when we have a lot of these younger people working for us doing the basins, maybe one day a week, they could, hit a street, and at least if we start the process. At least if we start. In the summer, we have, young people, we call them parks, but really they don't work in the parks. They maintain all those storm basins, all the detention.
Tanks
basins.
up, forget it.
Yeah, weed whacking.
But it's just in the summertime.
So, so what I'm saying is, kids, high school
Yeah.
kids.
Well, there you go.
Maybe we
There's a start.
A day a week where we make some inroads that way.
We talked about
Be a
that.
start anyway. Yeah.
It's a matter of,
Yeah, we can talk about it.
because they mow, what they do is they mow the
Yeah.
retention ponds, the
Yeah.
storm basins, they clean them all out, they do that, so. In addition to their responsibility, this section of depot, this section of high, safety, we're gonna have safety.
Takes a lot of
It does, yeah. It does.
Yeah, so I don't have a solution. I'm just here to
No,
kind of
I
identify
appreciate
that there is a problem and it's not gonna go away. I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus, but if you want me to rally some people or whatever, I mean, I can certainly do that.
I'd be happy to work with you on that, Brian. We can bring Jesse in and see if we can.
Yeah, see if we can figure out. I looked
Gotta
very
start
quickly to
somewhere,
see if
yeah.
there's businesses out there to do it, and there are some creative people in different parts of the country that have just created these businesses, but again, not knowing the legalities of it, you gotta be bonded or insured, you gotta have a safety thing or a detail. I kind of don't want to hear any of that. We just want to get the litter picked up. So I don't know what it is, but that's all I have. And as far as the trips, if someone get back to me on what is the rules, I mean.
They made an agreement that they wouldn't use High Street, and I've shared this with you. They
Yeah.
wouldn't use High Street. However.
Well, what does that mean? They made an agreement. What does
They're
that
not to use High Street as a cut through to 126. They can only use High Street for their delivery, but we know that doesn't happen. We know there are several trips a day. When those blue vans, whatever the blue, gray, green vans, whatever, they're
Yeah.
using High Street. I see them. Dennis and I had conversations with them. They have GPSs on the trucks. They can isolate and see who's going down
Right.
there. They can educate, but there are no teeth in the conditions when the planning board approved the
Oh,
building.
so
The
they-
planning board
The
approved the
agreement
building,
kind of laughable.
but
It's
if
like-
they approved the building, not knowing who the tenant was.
Right, I know.
The tenant becomes Amazon, we have no teeth, we have no way to tell Amazon, they're doing what they can to work with us, they're trying to be cooperative, but the bottom line is the Amazon doesn't own those delivery service. They're third-party contractors, and they go through a ton of employees on a
Right.
regular basis. And it's a never-ending battle in every single community.
Is there a limit as to how many trips can be made on a certain street? I mean, it is out of control. I'm not making it up. I can get.
You know, you're not, we know it, we see it.
They go in three directions. They go north. south,
Yeah.
and
And you told me about the gas station. They're supposed to enter the gas station a certain way.
Well, we've asked them to.
They
and
don't.
They still
I
take
see
a
it
right
every
at the
day.
end of Maple, and then
Right.
take a left into Rapid,
Right.
and it clogs up that intersection. We've asked them a million times to go straight across. Again, the same problem, don't use High Street. It's just an issue.
Maybe we make High Street a one-way like Cedar Hill.
It used to be.
Maybe you should have closed it.
It
Or
was.
suggested that you close it years ago.
was-
None of you guys were up.
When you remember, when they redid the bridge, the Army Corps of Engineers redid that bridge. Maybe
Remember.
before you there.
I
maybe
was
you
there when the bridge wasn't done.
The bridge, you couldn't use the road. It was, you could not use the road. And we
Well, anyway,
could
that's
make
not
it
gonna solve
one way.
Trash problem or an Amazon problem really, but it's sad to hear that what we have an agreement, we can't do anything about it. That to me is like, that's ridiculous.
That's the conversation with the planning board.
Yeah.
We have nothing to do with that.
So we can't go, the planning board can go back to them and.
No.
Okay.
They,
Oh,
and
take
and
more
now,
time.
and this is, hey, I sat out there as a resident.
Yeah.
And, brought all this stuff to their attention. There's only so much they can do. There's only so much at that time, whoever, Campanelli was building that building.
Yeah.
We had no idea it was gonna be Amazon.
Is that
No.
agreement in writing anywhere?
No.
So.
Well,
will
yeah.
you-
In the decision, there is language that says tractor trailer.
Tractor trailer,
Right.
but not their regular van.
Right,
Right.
right.
I don't know about.
Not
the
the
daily
delivery
trips.
vans.
I'm not sure of that, but I know tractor trailer trucks and they also are supposed to turn right coming out.
Yeah, and not turn left.
Yeah.
They don't.
Posted as well.
It's posted too, and I don't see many tractors.
You get them once in a great while. Those guys are totally lost. They made a mistake and they know it.
They don't want
They get yelled at the whole way down the
I've
street.
been involved in more tractor
Yeah,
trailers
yeah.
taking a left down High Street.
Yeah.
And realizing, they were supposed to go into the Amazon facility and now they're backing up, all the way back to
Yeah.
Maple Street. There's videos of that, so.
Well, your conservation people maybe can, have some teeth with the litter thing too, because that litter in the Charles River and, isn't Jim like a huge advocate of, was he in the planning board or?
Zoning.
All right.
Yeah, we haven't seen him in a while.
All right, well, I'll, do what I do on mine and see if I can get some people
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate
Okay.
it coming. Thanks for sitting there.
Yeah.
And waiting till the very end if I don't.
We'll follow up and see if there's some help we can get in the summer.
Absolutely, I think we should.
I'll be happy to help you.
All right, excellent. Is there any other new business? Anything else? Anything from our citizens? No?
Back to the density of those projects.
Sure.
Just point of information, the Charles has 16 units per acre. Down here, and then Curtis is 18 units per acre. Curtis is actually 15 acres with the housing that was out front. The main piece was 10 acres, but the housing added to it, so it's 15 acres, but they're 18 units per acre.
And what is the state saying?
15.
15 per less? Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Does it fit the density?
Good move.
But it's undeveloped land.
Nothing negative towards the property owners. though, Mr.
No,
Harkey.
not at all.
No, it's,
I'm all for development. And, and I've said this before, when you go down and, in other communities and you see kind of a mix, you see a Curtis type apartment along with these really nice, condominiums that are like there's three. And then you see another row of them. I'm like, this is all mixed. This is really nice. I wouldn't mind something like that. What I don't want is just Curtis everywhere, We don't want to become, like, as you said, we don't want to become a little city. We still want that town feel, but you
Right.
start
Trash
adding
is
all
a big
that
part of
stuff.
it.
That
Trash is a big part of it.
sure is. Oh, yeah. All right, awesome. Well, I'm really glad to hear.
Scratch tickets.
It's whipped cream cans. on my
Oh,
street.
that- Yeah, that's what they call them,
It's still
it's
whippets.
whipped cream can. They're, you should go down High Street during the day. You can't believe how many whipped
Yeah,
cream cans.
there's
are on
hundreds of them.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
In
there's
the
not
beer
just
cans.
whipped cream cans, but it's hundreds of,
The beer cans.
there's nip, there's everything.
You're
Squirt
taking
out
the
the-
chemical out of
Yeah.
the can.
Okay.
I've never done this.
Not done that. nor-
So do I.
The overtime,
Like
the
the
truck
ice
out.
cream.
Get the whole thing out.
Sure. All right, seeing that we have satisfied our agenda, I will. Call for motion. What's that?
So moved.
So moved. We have a first, we have a second. We have a second. We're all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a nice.
The